Well, I thought I'd start this week's video with something a little different by giving you a guided tour of my workroom. So, as I may have mentioned, I've recently moved into a new place and I'm in the process of getting this room sorted, which is where my main output is going to come from. So for anyone else this would be bedroom 3, I guess, but for me this is where all the magic happens. So already I've arranged my CDs, A to Z by artist in the background there. We've got some compilation CDs down below. Any DJ worth their salt would do the same because we're all kind of train spotters and a bit OCD at heart when it comes to this kind of thing. So that's all sorted. We've got some vinyl down below there. There's much more that needs to be added. That's all that I've got in the room at the moment. The rest is in the garage. So moving over here, in the corner, I've retrieved all my books from the living room and they now reside in this room. So on the top shelf there you've got all the music-based books. There's a huge volume on Paul McCartney, there's a couple of books on John Peel, there's Tom O'Neill's massive book Chaos, got a couple on the Northern Soul scene there. Further down we've got Simon Napier Bell's Black Vinyl White Powder, that's a great book. Not ABBA by Dave Haslam. We've got Neil Sanders' Now Is the Only Thing That's Real. A couple of reference books about chart positions and #1 hits and such, and a couple of really good books that have been recommended to me. Musical Truth Volumes 1 and 2 by some dude called Mark Devlin. Apparently these make a really good read. And further down, some more music books there. Of course, the 2 volumes of the memoirs of Billy Shears, essential research material. We've got a book there on Quincy Jones. We've got The Acid House by Irvin Welsh. We've got Altered State by Matthew Collins, that's a classic book. And then further down still we've got the conspiracy tomes, which start over here with a couple of volumes by David Icke. We've got Behind the Curtain, John Hamer's massive tome. We've got The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, who is an author that I deludedly followed for many years during my atheistic phase. I know better now, of course, I've put all that straight, but back in the day I used to pay attention to what Richard Dawkins had to say. So we've got some more books down here. We've got the Graham Hancock collection. I used to really be into the work of Graham Hancock as well. I've got some different thoughts about him now, don't entirely trust him. And also there we've got Esoteric Hollywood, Jay Dyer's book. We've got Bill Cooper's classic Behold a Pale Horse, and we've got some more conspiracy truth type books down there, including What Really Makes You Ill by David Parker and Dawn Lester, who I interviewed recently. Elsewhere we've got a few more CD archives here, and the most important part of the room is the DJ setup, which I've got over here. It's pretty rudimentary at the moment, it's pretty basic, but it allows me to get the job done. So this is where I produce my music show each week, The Sound of Now on First FM. And on the second shelf there we've got a secondary DJ mixer into which I plug a microphone, and through that I do all my Good Vibrations podcasts and record all my interviews. So that's where it all happens. Over here there's the window, and there's still a bit more work to be done when you look in this cupboard here. Many boxes still to be sorted and filed appropriately. So the job continues, it's a work in hand. But that is the way it's looking at the moment. And maybe next week I'll take you to the garage. Who knows? Well, that being said and done, let's get down to the video proper. And you know, an interesting thing regarding my move of home, which has actually been on the cards for about 18 months. It was interminably delayed by the C-word situation. It took months to get it going. But I've seen a couple of comments on YouTube threads to the effect that I'm some kind of MI5 agent, insider shill, and my new home has been gifted to me by my grateful employers for a disinformation job well done. Well, these people would consider themselves to be truth researchers, but personally I don't go much on their truth researching skills. But if they want to try and prove that my new home has been gifted to me by my overlords, rather than being the product of a lifetime of hard work and saving, then they are of course free to uncover all the proof and all the documentary evidence that will show that to be the case, but I won't be holding my breath for it. You find me recording this a few days after I put out my podcast, Good Vibrations Volume 161, featuring Charlie Freak and Colleen, returning to talk about the Q plan and the situation involving Donald Trump, what's going on behind the smokescreen of the coronavirus as they see it. And boy, I thought flat Earth was a divisive, controversial subject. I have received a whole load of scorn and derision from people for even putting this show out. And interestingly, I was listening to David Whitehead on one of his podcasts in the week, and he was saying the same thing. He had an insider come forward as a guest on one of his shows who claimed to have information on the Q plan and who wanted to break down what was going on behind the scenes. And David Whitehead was saying that he got shot down in flames by so many of his audience for even giving a platform for this individual to come on. And if we examine what I did here, that is all it was. I gave a platform for Charlie and Colleen to come on and update people on the situation as they see it. And they say that they're in touch with a group that is working on the inside. And so they have knowledge on what's going on with the so-called Q plan. And so this show was them presenting their findings on that front. So I've been called hopelessly naive for trusting in this obvious psyop as so many people see it, and many people have said that they no longer trust me as a researcher because I've dared to go down this path and look at this subject. Isn't this what open-minded critical thinkers are supposed to do? Are we not supposed to address subjects and apply rational thought to them and see if they hold water and stand up to the weight of scrutiny? That's what we did with this show. In terms of whether I'm fully on board with the information, I'm the same as many people watching this video will be, in that I don't know for certain if there is validity to what is being claimed this Q group is doing and in league with Donald Trump. But certainly much of the information that was presented in the show by Charlie checks out, can be verified. He talked about the overseas visits that Donald Trump made after first coming into office in 2017 and some of the visual spectacles that were available for people to view and some of the coded symbolic elements behind some of these visits. And again, all of this checks out. There is footage available to show that this took place. You do need to apply some perspective to the situation, and you do need to put it into some kind of context if you're going to make sense of what appears to be going on. And that's what I attempted to do with that podcast. As I say, it did divide opinion. Some people did support it. Some people believe there's validity to it. Many people were grateful for me putting the show out, but many others weren't. And one thing I've noticed is it's mainly dudes. It's mainly males that have said the whole thing is a bullshit psyop and that I should never trust it, and it was an error of judgment for me to even put the show out in the first place. And on the flip side of that, I've had a lot of supportive, positive comments from females who are saying that they place a lot of trust and a lot of validity in what was presented. So what we have here is an expression of the sacred masculine in nature, which is all about strength and aggression, and that is presenting itself in the comments and the actions of many of these male people, male characters that commented in that way. Then you've got an expression of the sacred feminine in nature, which is all about care and compassion and intuition, and that really appears to have manifested itself in the comments that I got from many females. So I am grateful for all the feedback because it does allow me to gauge the way people are thinking about things out there. In terms of how the situation is going to play out, as I've said before, it changes week by week, and we will have to sit tight and see what happens in the weeks to come. But I stand by my decision to put the podcast out in the first place, and it's certainly got many listens. It's soaring along to become the most popular video I've ever put out. I think in a week or so it will have eclipsed all my other videos, so it's certainly a subject that people do have a great interest in hearing about. It does seem to be the case that many truthers are addicted to doom and gloom, and they seem to have a personal investment in a dystopian nightmare playing out, purely, it seems, so that they can be seen to have been some kind of guru or sage or soothsayer that told everyone it was coming, and thereby cement their reputation as a reliable source of information. Any kind of hope or optimism seems to be an anathema to many people. Lord knows, after all these weeks of doom and gloom and depression And I've been feeling it just as much as anybody else out there, trust me. I really have to pull myself into some kind of constructive and positive frame of mind to do these videos every week, because I don't always feel uplifted like that. But I always try and convey some kind of inspirational message, because I don't want to be adding to the doom and gloom that's out there. So of course I want there to be validity to the idea that the deep state cabal is being taken down and dismantled on the inside by this group calling itself Q, under the nominal leadership of Donald Trump. But I also do not want to be putting out false hope if it's unfounded. So that's pretty much my position on it. It's the same as it was last week. It is early days and we have to see how things pan out. I did receive an email in the week from a good friend of mine, and we correspond a lot, and we've commented that we seem to be sharing the same mind, because we really do seem to be on the same page with many things. This is a female friend of mine, and many of the things that she says to me in emails echo exactly what I'm feeling on that particular day, and she says the same. And I just want to read out some excerpts from the email that I received from her this week, which will further explain this situation. So let me just grab the excerpts here. So, first of all, she's commented on this idea that this house has been gifted to me by my employers. She says, "You know someone has really gone too far down the paranoia hole when they're suggesting you move in house means you're a paid shill. I think their notion of a house in the country is an American one where it's all manor houses and estates and only the super rich can afford to live there." Indeed, well, I'm very far from super rich. Never wanted to be either. She also says, "I'm still kind of on the fence, but leaning towards it being legit." She's talking about the Q plan now, because stuff is going down, and I'm clued up enough to realise that there will be so much going on behind the scenes that it's very deliberately being kept secret, because it would literally blow most people's minds apart for it to suddenly come out of nowhere and turn their world on its head. There must be double and triple agents all over this, and so much deliberate misinformation and machinations we could never get our heads around. I think a lot of truthers forget just how desensitized us researchers are to the horrors of this reality, and lose sight of the fact that the vast majority are still in blissful ignorance. Well, I think that's changing by the day with this situation we all find ourselves in. Blissful ignorance is really not remaining an option for many people, because there's nothing blissful about it anymore. So she also says, "Of course, we want to see the satanic scum publicly taken down now, but most people don't even have an inkling that they are murderous, demonic psychos yet. I still have twinges of nostalgia for the days when I didn't have a clue about how things really are." And I certainly echo that. As I was unpacking this room, I was going through old vinyl records, old CDs, tapes of old radio shows, all kinds of music memorabilia, old flyers, and it just reminded me of how simple and straightforward and enjoyable my life used to be when I knew none of what I know now. I was blissfully ignorant, and as a result, life was fun. And it's not the case now. But having said that, I would always rather know the truth, no matter how unsettling or difficult it is. Life isn't just about having fun and partying. Sure, that can be a part of it, but if we're going to live our lives to the full and have the full range of experiences of the human condition, alongside some joy, some happiness, some fun, there's got to be some suffering, some hardship, some facing up to cold, harsh realities and meeting challenges that come along. And I wouldn't change the ride that I've been on over the past 10 years for anything, difficult as it is to get through each day. It is what I came here for, and it's what many, many other people came here for, to play their part and to participate in world events that are going down now. It's no accident or act of random happenstance that we were born when we were where we were. It's because on a higher soul level, we wanted to be a part of this situation we find ourselves all in now. So I'm happy that I had the fun back in the day, but things are very different now. And just concluding this email that the friend of mine sent me, At this point, whatever is going on, people en masse are pressing for truth and pushing back against the agenda. And that is an intention and an energy that will manifest in the world no matter what. There's no going back now, whatever happens. If they try and hit us with a second wave, we've had all this pre-programming, haven't we, getting us used to the idea of a second wave. It seems almost inevitable that they're going to pull this stunt because it's been drip-fed into popular culture and the mainstream media for several weeks now, getting us all ready for this second wave. There were newspaper reports this week of Bournemouth Beach and various parks in London being absolutely packed with people. And why not? What are these people doing? They're associating with each other of their own free will through freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and these are natural born rights and freedoms. They're doing no harm. They're not putting other people at risk because the virus myth has been blown out of all proportion and there is no threat to other people from you supposedly supposedly passing this virus on. It doesn't work that way. So the people that were gathering on the beaches and in the parks were doing no harm. There was no injured party. But the mainstream media came down heavy on them and said, look at all these idiots not observing social distancing. This is going to lead to a second wave. Well, it's already been decided that they're going to try and put this out unless something comes in to stop it in its wake, and I'll get onto that shortly. But just to finish this comment, the second wave, I do believe they would actually need to make us genuinely sick with something, because too many people are awake to the scam and won't just accept seasonal flu being touted as a deadly agent while hospitals remain visibly empty and millions go bankrupt. They pulled all this off with the first wave. This friend of mine, and I concur with her, is of the view that they're going to have a much more difficult job making it stick with this fabled second wave because so many people now are awake to the scam and we've got to keep that going. I'm pretty sure the collective consciousness has unknowingly averted all kinds of deadly plots to wipe out huge swathes of us over the centuries. I addressed this in a previous video, how the actions of those of us that do place obstacles in the path of the control system and where they want to take things, and we make life difficult for them, and we spread empowering information to others so that they can be clued up to make better decisions and not be compliant with what's being used against them, can actually have the effect of the evildoers rolling back their plans or deciding not to go ahead with certain aspects of them because they feel it would make it just too bloody obvious what they're up to, and their cover would be blown, and they really would be standing under the full spotlight of scrutiny. So that is a process that I'm sure has happened in the past. I'm sure it's happened during this current coronavirus situation. I think we have pushed back against many of the measures that would be in place if all of us had just sat on our asses and done nothing and believed the lie, and I think that's going to continue. So she concludes by saying, it can certainly happen with whatever bollocks they have lined up next. Absolutely. So in terms of kicking back then against this fabled second wave ahead of when it comes in, just trying to get a bit of a head start on it, I've put together another resource this week, which is a double-sided flyer, A4 format for normies. Again, regular members of society, people who might still be buying the official line on the virus situation and suffering from all the fear-based propaganda about it. I did a flyer resource back early days in April, consisting of links that I was trying to direct people to get some alternative information on what's going on. So it was doctors that had broken ranks to come out and talk about what viruses really are. It was information on how the death figures have been artificially inflated to make the disease seem much more scary and wide-ranging than it is, that kind of thing. Sadly, most of those URLs have since expired, so a new resource was long overdue, and this one was based on an idea that was brought to me by an associate of mine on Facebook. I won't name him in case he doesn't want his name put out there, but he put the idea in mind, and I've taken that and added to it. So I'm going to put the download links to the PDFs of this document down below in the text, and if anyone wants to grab them for themselves and print off some copies, they're very welcome to do so. I've sent the artwork off to some printers. I'm paying to get these done. They should be with me by the end of next week. And then I will be happy to mail out quantities of these flyers to anyone out there that wants to help in getting them distributed. This can be done on a one-to-one basis. Maybe in the street, or people that you meet out and about on your travels, or they can be left in places where they're likely to be seen by large numbers of people. So that will be available in about a week from now. I'll do an update video next week to just remind everyone of that, but in the meantime, as I say, you can grab the downloads, because we have to try and get ahead of the curve here and take some of the power back into our own hands in terms of dictating the playout and the timeline of what's yet to come. More madness this week, more straight insanity, more conflicting information. So right after we get the announcement from Boris Johnson that most establishments are going to be able to open again from the 4th of July, and the very next day in the mainstream media, they're running a scare story about how experts— it's never the experts that I get on my show, is it? Or other alternative shows. Experts are warning that a second wave is on the way. The very next day after we're told we can get some of our freedoms back, which they had no right to take away from us in the first place. But on the 4th of July, we're told that pubs, restaurants, cafes, hotels, cinemas, museums, hairdressers, and other establishments are going to be able to open. What they're going to look like, I don't know. I've really been suffering, personally, from not being able to go to some of these places. I like going to the pub every now and again. I like going to cafes. I like going to restaurants. I like going to the cinema every now and again. And for the past 4 months, we've not been able to do that. So I'm kind of enthusiastic about the idea of being able to do some of this stuff again, but it is dependent on what kind of a horror story it's going to look like. If there's going to be masked zombies everywhere, staff behind visors and bloody forensic suits, if there's going to be sanitizer everywhere, if social distancing, which is an oxymoron by the way, there's nothing social about it, it's antisocial, it's the whole point of it. If all these measures are going to be completely over the top and, you're going to have to queue outside, you're going to have to stand behind bits of tape, follow one-way systems just like you do in the supermarkets, it may not be worth going through these horrors. But I will wait and see what some of these places look like. I suspect when it comes to pubs, cafes, restaurants, a lot of it will be down to the discretion of the proprietors and how far they're trying to take things. I'm sure a lot of these venues are going to follow all the guidelines to the letter because they don't want to run into any kind of problems should somebody try and make a claim that they caught the virus from being in their establishment. So they're going to try and limit any liability on that front. But I like to think there will be some visionary maverick proprietors who realise it's all bollocks, who have been waiting for months to reopen their businesses and who aren't going to be employing any of these madness measures any more than they absolutely have to. So, as I say, we'll see what that looks like. But another thing about the virus, we now know that the virus is a film buff because cinemas are allowed to reopen on the 4th of July. That means that when these people are all sat in close proximity to each other in the seats, if the virus is around, it's not going to bother them because it likes a good movie. The virus is just going to sit there and watch the movie and take it all in and not bother anyone. But gyms are not reopening. And this is because the virus is very lazy and it doesn't like keeping fit. So when people are in a gym in close proximity to each other, it is going to get them. It's going to, you keep fit bastards. I don't like you. I'm going to get you. And it's going to go in. But you won't get that in cinemas. So it is a very sensible decision that the government has taken, and I'm sure we're all grateful that they've applied some research and some common sense to this matter. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say this week. Again, links to resources will be below, and no doubt I'll be back with you again soon. I did an interview this week for the Event 202 podcast with Simone Marshall and Robin Campbell. That was on Wednesday of this week. We chatted for a couple of hours about current events, giving our perspectives and insights and stuff. So I'll put the link to that one below. And other than that, I hope everyone will stay as sane and as optimistic as it's possible to in these times. And I'll catch you again soon. Thanks for watching.